All right, friends, welcome again. We are on number 10. Number 10, two more to go. And though number 12 will be A and B. And we are going to talk about the nutrient-loaded diet. I'm going to show you some photos. These onions are growing commercially about 1.5 kilometers from our place. Now, I wish this farmer, this friend of ours, this neighbor, will be growing them organically. Unfortunately, he is not. By the time they are harvested, these onions will be sprayed 32 times. That comes from the mouth of the farmer. The farmer actually told me. I said to him, does that mean that you're spraying them with different nutrients? No. Spray like killing the weeds and the bugs and all those things. 32 times by the time they get harvested. So they were planted. Now we looked over the window. He is 1 kilometer away, so is the paddock in front of us. At 1 kilometer distance, and we look through the window. And when he is planting, we're planting. And when he plants the cauliflowers, we're planting the cauliflowers. Because we're learning all this, right? So rather than just trying to look in the internet, okay, what should I plant now? So we just look through the window. So he planted this, and on the very same day, my wife planted hers at our property. That's hers, and that's his. So the one on the right is my wife's. The ones on the left are his. So nice mulching around there. Can you see the difference in color? They're taken on the same day by the same camera. Taken on the same day by the same camera, and actually planted the same day also in different properties. Can you see the difference in color? One is much greener. It's actually thicker and stronger. We're getting onions this size, and they're juicy, and they're very, very strong. You will cry. I always say that onions are like Christianity. The deeper you go, the more you cry. If you haven't cried with Christianity, you haven't gone deep enough. So my wife is very proud of her onions, and she said to me, make sure if you're going to use my photo that you mention that they are my onions. I said, no worries. So I'm going to show you the garlics. Those are the garlics from another friend, from another neighbor on the other side. She actually grows them organic, and we actually share the heads of garlic to replant the very next year. So that's hers, and that's my wife's. Can you see the difference? Those in their homes will be able to perhaps appreciate it better than on the screen here. The difference is fairly obvious. Okay, when you actually see that. In fact, those that are doing the recording at the back will be able to see it better on the screen. Okay, so what does it mean? It means, friends, that if it's not in the soil, it's not in the vegetable. People actually have played down certain statements that I have made in the past when I suggested people to go into certain types of supplementation. And they say, well, Oscar, if we are believing in a healthy diet, we are not to be using supplementation. Do you know what's wrong with that? Australian soil, which is where I come from, is deficient in zinc, magnesium, manganese, and selenium, which are cofactors for liver detoxification. They are some of them are actually cofactors also for good blood production, and cofactors for protein integration and amino acid integration. And if it's not in the soil, it's not in the food. So what do? We learned over the years. I'm not a farmer. I'm just learning. We've been learning over the years. I remember many years ago, I got these books, and I was getting very excited. I said to my wife, Beauty, we are going to be the best farmers ever. We're going to grow the best organic things ever. And then I went to a very experienced organic farmer. And I said, look, I got these books, and I shared with him the principles, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, Oscar, it will be between 7 to 10 years. I said, no, I'm studying this very season. He said, yeah, I know you're studying this very season. 7 to 10 years. I said, what do you mean? Nothing like try and error, Oscar. Nothing like try and error. Sure enough, we are on our 10th year now, and now is when we see very beautiful results. We actually make our own soil. We make our own soil out of, we go to this company that actually prunes trees, and they make it very, very fine, all these wood chips, very, very fine wood chips, and then they compost that, and they sell 5 trailer loads for $90. They want to get rid of the stuff because that's not their business. That's something that they do on the side. Their business is actually the logging of the trees. So we get that, and to that, we actually add rock dust. You know what rock dust is? It's what you get out of a quarry, when they're working with soil, where they're working with rocks. And especially if you get a quarry that has volcanic rocks, and you get the rock dust, you add rock dust to it. Because you're adding what? Minerals. See, it's not enough to get organic farming, because if your area is deficient on something, and you're using everything around you just to make your compost, the very same thing that is deficient of in the first place won't just all of a sudden magically appear in your compost bin. So you will still remain deficient on that thing. So we add rock dust to it. And the rock dust actually eventually leaches into the soil. We add some manures, we add some pH regulators, and then we just make boxes and we just fill them up. And the second year is better than the first year, and the third year is better than the second year. And this year we had an entire big bed of broccoli, and we saw our neighbor being flooded with the cabbage moth. And we saw ours. A cabbage moth came, and I actually saw it. I saw it this spring. It just came like this, and it took off. It went to the neighbors. The neighbor was just flooded with the cabbage moth. Because when your plant is sick, the moth is going to get rid of it. They are like scavengers. And rightly so. It's part of the plant, because you don't want a sick plant to produce seed, and then propagate sick-looking plants. So the strongest are not touched. They don't need cleanup. Sometimes the insects are doing a job for us. And I've seen it this spring. Nothing has touched our broccoli, not even one bite. And the leaves, they have like a film on it. It's like it's like if they had a coconut oil over them, an amazing film around them. If it's not in the soil, it's not in the fruit. And when you're eating lettuce that have been harvested in China, put in a container, brought over, and then sitting for a week in the shopping center, I'm going to tell you something. Vitamin C is near 0 on those lettuces. So, if it is not in the soil, it's not in the plant. I think we need to stop growing plants and start growing soils. Right? Okay. Now, let me mention to you these two machines here. It's called juicing and blending. Some people talk to me about juicing versus blending. I don't have juicing versus blending. I have juicing and blending. For one, you will need a juicer. For another one, you will need a blender. Okay? Now, people say to me, but when you juice something, when you juice a vegetable, what you're actually doing is you're removing all the fiber. Okay, how many calories does fiber have? How many calories? 0. Or pretty much near 0. How much fiber do you absorb into your system? 0. So what is fiber there for? Well, fiber contains the nutrients. Fiber contains the nutrients. As the fiber containing nutrients goes through your digestive system, it's like your system is able to squeeze out the nutrients out. The nutrients get in And now the fiber, the soluble fiber, what happens now is it fills up with toxins. And then comes out of the body. So, it's a carrier. Fiber is a carrier. It carries the nutrients in. So what is the actual body absorbing? The juice. Because when you look at a juicer, when you actually look at a juicer, especially like a masticating juicer, you know, the ones that go very slowly, those juicers work on your patients. They go very slowly. It has 2 holes. In one hole, the juice comes out. Through the other hole, just the pulp of all that fiber that has been squeezed out. Now, in the body, there is a step further. Now, that fiber is used to collect toxins and bring toxins out of the body. It's a carrier. Now, you need fiber for your natural functions of your body because you need that carrier. Okay? But I'll tell you what, once you have enough, you don't need fiber and fiber and fiber and fiber and fiber. You need what you need. And once you cover what you need on the day, you don't need more. That's covered. So why am I using juices for? Because my diet already daily has enough fiber. I'm using the juices to increase my nutritional load. Did you get that? I forgot to actually bring a chart here for you. I was running these meetings in Melbourne at some point, and somebody actually, through the breaks, gave me a piece of paper. A study that showed how many beta-carotene has dropped from the average carrot from 1950 to 1990. To the point that you actually needed 10 carrots in 1990, eat 10 carrots to obtain the same amount of beta-carotene that 1 carrot will do in the 1950s. So what am I doing now with the juices? Yes, I'm taking the fiber out, but I'm getting the fiber from something else. I've got enough fiber through my diet. I am getting enough nutritional load. Because when I feed my plants and my plants look healthy, the insects don't attack them. So if I feed my body, by the way, do you know that we are made of the same material as the soil? So if I fill my soil, the insects won't attack me. So the juices are there for the purpose of increasing your nutritional load. It is true that you remove the fiber, but you get the fiber somewhere else. Where do you get, what would you use a blender for? And by the way, there's a very good blender called a Vitamix. So if you have, in Australia, if you have between 750 to up to 1,200 Australian dollars, you can get a Vitamix. I am a bit more poor than that, so I got an imitation. Mine is called OmiBlend, and it costs $300. OmiBlend, and it's called $300, and it's just a replica of Vitamix. Now, what's the difference? Well, in terms of the engine, it's still the same, very powerful engine. But just recently, I was heading home from a meeting place with my wife, and the petrol pump broke in my car in the middle of the freeway. I had to wait there for hours. Then the guy came and said, I can't fix it. I need to call the truck. It was hot. And I was giving thanks. Thank you for this. I'm sure there's a reason for this. Thank you. And then somebody actually gave me a lift home. When I got home, I saw my blender filled up with water and the residue of breakfast. We had a smoothie. We had to leave early, and we had a smoothie. Residue of breakfast. Now, because they're so powerful, the best way to clean them is actually you just fill them up with water, and you just press the button, and just the turning actually cleans the blades and everything. I said, I think I'm just going to make some hummus and just have some sandwiches. It was late. I was hungry. I put it in there. I pressed on. Bah! Nobody told me that a metal spoon was inside. Now, if that would have happened to me with a Vitamix of $1,200, that would be enough to break my Christian experience. But because it was $300, I even looked like a Christian to my wife. I went to the sink. I was breathing in and breathing out. My wife said, "Thank the Lord." I looked at her and said, "Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes." So I removed the destroyed metal spoon out of that blender, and the blades were just a bit twisted. I managed to punch them back, and it's working fine again. So that's the difference between a $1,200 blender and a $300 blender that is just as powerful. It can help you in your Christian walk. Okay? What do I use that for? What do I use the green smoothies for? I get a bunch of spinach, and I get a bunch of berries or blackberries, and I put my maca. Remember that we talked about my maca, and sometimes I put my kelp in it. And look, I'm not going to tell you many of my recipes, because in my home there's certain standard recipes that everybody drinks, and then there are daddy's recipes that only daddy is able to drink. They're very nutritious, very powerful. Nobody in my house come near those ones, and I enjoy them. When I drink them, everybody in my house put this face, oh, and I go, wow, this is beautiful. This is going to make me healthy. Because we need to actually drink and eat with thanksgiving. Full of nutrition. I won't give you the exact recipes, okay? Now, what we're doing is the following. We put enough nutrients in by quantity. There's people that are actually losing weight because they don't realize that the calories are not in it. They're not actually eating enough calories. At the end of the day, losing or gaining weight is an equation. How many calories do you use during the day? How many calories you bringing in? And what's the difference? If you put in less calories than what you're consuming, you will lose weight. If you put in more calories than what you're consuming, you will put on weight. So if you're losing weight, maybe a blender will actually be doing that. If you have to go through a big bowl of salad, you get tired halfway through, And this is just illustration. Don't do this, but this is illustration. If you get that salad and you blend it up, it's just 2 glasses, okay? Not that I do that, okay? But that's for you to illustrate you that you actually consume more if you are in need of calories and nutrients, okay? So there's nothing against between juicing and blending that is in opposition. They're just complementary. Okay? Now let me tell you something. It is my conviction that this day that because of the depletion of our soils, that the best diet, the best vegetarian diet, or if you are not a vegetarian, the best diet that you can accomplish, that you comfortably feel comfortable with, it will be incomplete if you don't introduce vegetable juices in it. Basically because you won't have enough of the nutrient load. Okay? And we have experienced the difference. We actually put to the patients that come through, we actually put them, also we introduce vegetable juices with them. Now, if a person has diabetes, we will give them certain juices with a much lower GI. Okay? We're not going to give them apples and certain things. But we have to see where the person is at. But basically, it is my conviction today that any vegetarian diet, or any diet by that matter, it will be incomplete today because of the depletion of the soils without the introduction of vegetable juices. Okay? Now you need to activate your nuts. How do you activate your nuts? You soak them. Now you go to Australia and you buy a kilo of almonds in a normal shop and it's $7 a kilo. Then you go to a health food shop and it says activated almonds, $19 a kilo. Oh, wow. Whoa, if they are activated? Are these better than me? Oh, yeah, they're activated, so So, it's more absorbable and things like that. Oh, right, okay. And what do you do to activate them, Because the $7 versus $19. They won't tell you. It's a hocus pocus. You just radiating them. You just put them through an electron. What do? They just soak them. They soak the almonds. And then they just use the dehydrator and dehydrate them. So they're actually a bit bigger, crunchier. And what have you done? You've done exactly the same thing that you've done with the beans and the lentils and the chickpeas. When they harvest the nuts, unless they still come on the shell, they actually dry them further. And there's actually some sulfur treatment also to keep them dry. So no moisture is left in it, so you have an extended life. So in other words, they are on a storage condition. The almonds are on a storage condition. We need to put them in an eatable condition. How do you put them in an eatable condition? You soak them and you get rid of the water. Now remember that I told you about the bodyguards that are on chickpeas and lentils, the bodyguards. Well, in the storage condition, nuts have bodyguards too, and you need to get them out. You get them out by soaking them. We actually have a dehydrator in the house, and sometimes my wife just soaks like 2 kilos or 3 kilos. Soaks 2 or 3 kilos and leaves them there soaking for 24 hours. Then she gets rid of the water and then spreads them in the dehydrator and dehydrates them at about 45 degrees. So still all the enzymes are alive and they're just nicely dry. And everybody loves them because they're more crunchy, they're not acid forming, they are alkaline forming. And now that they dry, you can actually store them up like normal almonds because they dry, but they are now activated. Or you can just eat them soaked. So you can just soak 7 or 10 almonds the previous night and then you use those 7 or 10 almonds. Because you need to understand that if you soak them, now they're just making them alive. And if you don't consume them soon enough, while they are still wet, they will go off. You understand that, right? So, certain ones are not so critical to soak, like Brazil nuts, for example. Or walnuts, if the walnut comes in the shell. But almonds, definitely you'll get the great benefit of almonds if you soak them. Great benefit in calcium. It lowers your cholesterol. It will help you lose weight. It will balance your sugar levels. And in fact, it used to be that when you were about to run a marathon, you will eat a big plate of pasta the night before. Now, the good ones, they run on nut butters. They soak them, they make nut out of it, and they add maca to it. And they put it in a little bottle that they squeeze out. And they run with that little bottle, 40, 50 Ks, with nut butters. But they soaked, and they have the maca added to it. Okay? So that's what you do to activate your nuts. So Brazil nuts are not so critical. Okay? But cashews will actually make, if you're making cashew cream, for instance, if you use soaked cashews, it actually gives us a much creamier consistency, and it's actually easier to digest. You following? Okay. And the beans, we spoke about the beans. We won't touch again. You'll have to review the program in the past about the beans. We need to get rid of the inhibitors. By keeping them in a storage mood, they're full of inhibitors. And what are the inhibitors trying to do? Protect, with their lives, the protein content of those beans. So if you are eating them with inhibitors, you are not getting the protein. You might be eating protein, but not absorbing protein. Okay? Wheat. Now, for those that haven't watched it, we have the Gluten Connection seminar, in which we actually, some of the things that we mentioned there is that within the turning of the century, there were 6 defined families and some branches of it, 6 defined families of wheat. After the middle of the century, until now, how many families of wheat do we have now? How many varieties? 4, 40. 25,000. 25,000. And I'll encourage you to watch the video, but I'll just say this much to you. The varieties today of wheat, they were not in existence 100 years ago. And the varieties of wheat today are called pest resistant. Do you know what that means, friends? The grasshoppers don't eat it anymore. The grasshopper doesn't eat it anymore. So I can't go much into detail because otherwise it will be a total different seminar, but I definitely encourage you to do so. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you an example. We've got a breakfast sample 1. This is just a sample. You don't need to follow it, but you'll see certain common denominators. 250 ml of vegetable juice. It can be carrot with cucumber, or carrot and beetroot, and carrot and spinach, silver beet, or you can do greener. The greener you can do, the more you have to be careful that you probably need less of it, especially if you're not used to it. And then, in a bowl, place 1 cup of cooked quinoa with 1 grated apple or pear sprinkled with grounded nuts and a touch of coconut or almond milk. And honey is optional. And here in New Zealand, you have the sweet country. Beautiful honey here. Beautiful honey. I'll tell you what, that's a very satisfying breakfast. Extremely satisfying breakfast. If you cook the quinoa with a pinch of salt, and you leave it in a container in your fridge, guess what? You can have it today for breakfast, with the grated apple or the pear and the nuts, and you can even put a bit of coconut milk or whatever it is. And now you have half of the container in the fridge. Tomorrow, you do quinoa patties and you have it as savory, and you add, if you have almond milk, you end up with all the pulp of the almond, and now you use the pulp of the almond with the quinoa that was left over from yesterday, and you mix it together, and you add some herbs and whatever, and you end up with patties. Rich in protein, low GI, that will help you maintain sugar levels and your weight. So, sample breakfast 2, 250 ml of vegetable juice. In a blender, a handful of baby spinach, 1 banana, 1 or 2 tablespoons of maca or teaspoons of maca powder, 5 to 7 soaked almonds, and water for consistency. I'll tell you what, that is a very nutritious breakfast. One of the things that I do that my wife doesn't like to do, she will add the water to the blender. Sometimes I just skip 1 step. I juiced, and I go, I might as well just use the juice in the blender. Oh, no, that's disgusting. You're using a carrot juice there, and you blend it up with it as well. Now, lunch sample. 250 ml of vegetable juice, large mix garden salad, chickpea curry. My wife makes some coconut milk put some cumin and some turmeric, for instance, and it just looks, I put curry in brackets because it's not, I won't get the Indian passport with that curry, but we call it like a curry type of thing, and boiled potatoes, for instance. Okay, so I start with a very large percentage of alkaline, which will balance up any possible acidity from other things, and I'm still enjoying a meal and eating a large salad, a vegetable juice, and that thing is loaded with nutrients. Sample 2, 250 ml of vegetable juice, large mix garden salad, steamed vegetables with brown rice, and a nut mayonnaise sauce. So you have steamed vegetables with brown rice, with whatever, and nut mayonnaise on top, just to make it beautiful. Okay? Do you see certain common denominators? I don't believe that we can actually maintain for a long time a nutrient-loaded diet without inclusion of vegetable juices. And also, is large amount of fresh produce that is uncooked. We do have some cooked things, but large amounts of uncooked produce. For tea, or dinner, as some people call it, a light vegetable soup, or one or two buckwheat crackers with avocado, because it has to be a light dinner, and preferably before the birds go to sleep, because when the birds go to sleep, your liver goes to detox. Your liver it doesn't need to be cold to do digesting functions when it's meant to start the daily detoxification function. Sorry. So, dinner sample 2, a gluten-free pancake or a crepe with tahini and stewed apple, or hot carob with almond or rice milk, honey or rice syrup optional. That's a dinner. That's just a sample. It's not the only sample. Now, if you have diabetes, you might actually have to watch out for the honey, watch out for certain sweet things. You need to actually use your common sense, okay? I just put samples that hopefully will reach as many people as possible, okay? And I would like to invite you for the 11th presentation that is coming up. Thank you for coming.